All right, so what I want to do is just cover how to do some sculpting stuff that would be beneficial, and just like how to basically carry on from here. So right now we have is our low res version, and I use that term very lightly. Make sure I'm on the main guy here. But what we can do is you can see this is pretty low, but it has proper geometry, right? I mean, it could be a little bit better, but it's kind of proper. I just want to smooth out this face here. Okay, I have more or less proper geometry. Obviously, not the greatest topology, but it's okay. So what we want to do is basically we want to subdivide the model now. So make sure you have nothing masked. So just hold Control, click, and drag into an empty area to make sure nothing's masked. And then you hit divide. And what that's going to do is it will subdivide the model. You can probably tell now it has twice as much. Hit it again, and you can do that. Now you can also go down the line to make it low res and go high res. And what's nice is, as you sculpt on it. Oh, I know why, because my strength's very low, I think. Let's see. As you sculpt on it, it will also affect the lower layer. So they are all affected all the same, okay? However, you're going to notice that when you do the higher res, when you try to smooth it, see me smoothing out, see how it's not flattening? If I go to the lower levels, it will flatten. So what that means is, I'm going to do all that, just so I don't have to deal with it all. What that means is try to work in the lower levels, especially when you're doing bigger, broader things, and then get to the higher levels, and then you can start doing, more minutia of details and such, okay? I want to change a couple of settings real quick before we kind of continue on with this part. I'm just going to hit Shift-F. You can also hit it with polyframe here. Also, always make sure you have this on. I find perspective a little bit easier to work with. So one is, I already showed you with the hair there, but basically just to make sure, because it doesn't show up every time, go to brush, make sure you go to auto masking. So brush, where are you? Auto masking, and make sure you put on back face mask. That's definitely going to help you. You also might want to go to depth and just make sure that your embed and depth that this is lower, because otherwise what will happen is if it's like this or like this, what will happen is it'll actually sculpt like through the model and it will push it farther than you want. Okay, so just make sure that those two things are good. Another thing that I like to do, and there's other brush settings here too that you can kind of look at. I don't really do anything with these, but just they exist there. Another thing that's also useful is if you go to the stroke. By default, this lazy mouse is on, so if I make this longer, you'll see what I'm saying. Let me make this a little bit smaller. But you see that line that gets drawn? It's also got the steps. But see how it's like hard to like draw with? That could be useful sometimes. It's particularly useful if we take, oh yeah, see I made the steps longer. If I take this radius and go like this, you can get these nice beautiful curves, which is great. So it'll help kind of guide, but I don't find it very useful. So I just usually turn it off altogether. And that way when I draw, it just draws the strokes. And it's, I'm free to do jolty, not good looking stuff. Yeah, I usually turn that off as well. Okay, so from there, what I would like to do basically is just do a little bit of sculpting just to give you a rough idea. So the first thing I'm going to do, and I am just going to concentrate on, let's say, his shirt here, just because I feel like that'll be a little bit easier. So I'm just going to hold Control and Shift and click on it so I don't have to look at any of the rest of it, although sometimes that is beneficial. And I am going to start lower, so we'll do like, let's say 2. And I'm just going to do big, broad changes. Okay, so we'll just kind of, whatever you feel like you need to do. Let's make this a little bit bigger. And I'm going to take my thing a little bit wider so it's more like that. And I just hold Shift in between. Okay, I just want to build this out a little bit more so it's not so tight looking, so it looks a little bit more like a shirt. Just trying to make it more tube-like. All right, and then same thing here. Let's just kind of build it out a little bit so it's a little more shirt-like. Okay, so just draw a stroke and then just make sure afterwards you hold Shift to smooth. All right, so I'm just drawing a stroke, Shift to smooth. So I'm just trying to make this a little bit more kind of, in a lot of ways, just kind of taking away a lot of the nuance. Okay, so make your big broad moves. Maybe maybe I'm like, oh, his shoulders could be a little bit bigger. It feels a little bit kind of weak here, so maybe I'll just kind of build that up. I'm just gonna hold Shift and Smooth, but notice that the smooth works pretty good at this level, and the rest of it works pretty okay as well. So I'm making kind of larger changes, and we'll say, okay, that's fine for a shirt. Okay, so good. So then what I'll do is I'll just kind of go up maybe a level. So let's go to like 3. And I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. I'll take the focal shift down a little bit so it's a little bit sharper. And then I'm just going to start doing some bigger, shirt lines. Okay, so I'm just going to basically do some wrinkling. Now, a good way to do shirt wrinkles is to draw a stroke. Let's make this focal shift a little bit more in the middle. Draw a line, okay, if you can, like so, maybe a couple of times. And then smooth the top, but leave the bottom. Because that way it'll be more of a teardrop shape, and it'll look a little bit more like it ought to. All right. It's not a lot of resolution to do the sleeves here. You can see not as much, but we'll just do what we can. All right. So I'm just going to do kind of bigger strokes. Probably get a little closer here. And just make sure you smooth out in between. Right, so you get kind of the idea. All right, so we'll say that that's kind of a real rough. Smooth that out. Okay. Okay, whatever. Okay, so we got that. So then what I'll do is I'll go up. Oh, see, that was still. I'll go up to 4 here. And now I can do even kind of more minutia. So I'm going to get kind of the tighter wrinkles here, like that you might see around his shirt. So you can even see right here, there's not quite enough resolution. These work over here because these are kind of going with the edge loops. So that's why topology sort of matters as well. So we're just going to kind of smooth that out. And I'm just going to make kind of the more subtle wrinkles here. So I'm just kind of drawing these strokes. I'm just going to smooth out the top part of each one of these. All right, you might be able to maybe get some more nuance inside of here. Oops, see how that's a little bumpy there. We can maybe do some wrinkles here. All right, you can kind of see some kind of whatever there. Maybe some more subtle, and smooth those out. But you can see the smooth doesn't work as well in these higher res, so you have to be really careful about overdoing it. Okay, so we'll say something kind of like that. And then we could go even higher. So let's just divide a little bit more. Might be partially modified. Oh, hang on a second. Let's bring everything back and then hit divide. Apparently it wouldn't want to divide the other parts there. Okay, we can see we're getting a little bit closer. Now, and I would kind of keep carrying on with that, but we can do even more detail. So I am up to 5.8 million. I'm going to divide one more time because I just want to show you some other stuff that you can do. So actually, I'm going to go down a little bit just to kind of show you something. So I'm just going to do is sternocleidomastoid muscle. So it goes from his mastoid process to his sternum and his clavicle. So that's why sternocleidomastoid. Okay, so we're just going to put that in there. Maybe a little bit of a Adam's apple thing going on, right? You get the idea. It's going to be a little bit more subtle. Oof. Yeah, I'm doing a bad job, but I'm just trying to do it quick. Anyway, so, okay, so what you could do too is start to play around. So once you get high enough resolution, so I'm going to go all the way up to 6 here, and now I am at, now mind you too, it's exponential. So every time it's cutting it in 4, so it's not just doubling, it's like quadrupling. Okay, so we now have pretty high resolution. So from here, you can actually do even more interesting or cool things to kind of add to the sculpt. So for one, we haven't really been playing around with this too much, but you can play with alphas. So for instance, one of the alphas that's kind of good for like neck wrinkles here is this one here. Hopefully I have this high enough resolution. Okay, good. Yep. So what I'm going to do is have that. I'm going to take my intensity down a whole bunch. Okay. And I'm going to hold Alt because that'll go in as opposed to out. And I'm just going to kind of draw these in here and see how like I'm able to get kind of that cool sort of neck wrinkle texture. You know, maybe you want to do some stubble. So I go over here and I could look for, actually, I'm going to show you. There's some really neat ones, like if you're doing like creatures and stuff. So actually, I'll show you that one afterwards. Let's see if we have something that's a little more. Oops. Well, this might work actually. So if you look at here, you can see it's doing. Well, that doesn't look very good. These little tiny dots. So I'm just going to undo them because they're not very good. Let's see if we can find. Do they have a better one? Not that one. Guess it's all kind of the same. So we'll just use this. But like, let's say I want to do pores, right? I could take this, make this a little bit smaller. But what I don't want to do, so if I hold Control and, if I hold Alt and drag, you can see it's going to draw it like a line. But what I could do is try to just like space it out or dot it. So I could just kind of tap, right? Make sure I'm holding Alt. And you can see we're able to basically make some adjustments. Yeah, so anyway, we could do stuff like that. We can also, so like let's say you want to do something kind of neat. Let's say we do like this guy here. We've just been drawing with a typical stroke. If I go over here, you can see there's other different kinds, right? So one is drag dot. So watch this. This is pretty fun. Make this a little bit bigger. You click and you drag, and my strength's not high enough. Hang on a second, because you're not able to see it. Oops. Alt, click, and drag back. Come on. There we go. If I take my intensity up a bit, you'll be able to see it better. You click, and then you drag it, and it will be wherever you want it. So click, and then you could like drag, click, and drag. Okay. You go the other way. All right, so that one's pretty neat. That can be kind of useful. There's also spray, which will kind of spray it. Imagine it's like it just keeps pumping it out. So that would actually probably have been better for what we were doing earlier with these, trying to do this follicle thing. I could just have done that, you know, maybe weaken it, but there's spray. Don't worry about the this color spray. We'll cover that later. Freehand, you already saw. There's also drag. So let's just choose another one here just to make it interesting. Let's do this one. So you click and you drag it. See, I'm putting it in the center. So let me put it, oops, over here. So we'll just do it on his eyeball. You drag it, and it will. You can kind of rotate it and choose how you want it to look. So that's also pretty useful. So you can look at all these alphas. There's all sorts of them. There's actually more than what you see here. So I'm going to back to dots. That's typically, dots are freehand. They kind of do the same thing for the most part. If you do open the light box, you can see there's actually more alphas that are available to you here that you might find helpful. There's also, we haven't done anything with textures. There's more brushes as well that you can also play with. But you shouldn't start doing this stuff until you get to the really high end. You know, once you've got the rest of it all pretty good, then you can start to work on those other elements. So yeah, don't do that until you get the rest of it all sculpt out, you know. So like I had the shirt a little bit closer. I just didn't really see texturing making a whole lot of sense inside of there, you know, using those alphas and what have you. You can also, if it'll let me click on it, there it goes. Oops, come on, you can do it. You can import some alphas if you want as well. So just find, you know, it has to be a black and white image. And you can import them. I think they need to be JPEGs, if I remember. Might be PNGs. I'm not sure. And then you can import those and utilize those as well. All right. So if you have something you're looking for in particular, just do that. All right. So try to get that all sculpted out.